To the dear friend who lives in the world next to mine, I am typing this letter with steady hands and a hopeful heart. I want to start with a moment from this evening that still hums in my chest. At 1903, the city sirens sang not for danger but for a decision. Our curfew price crossed the rule at 0.701 for 3 days in a row. That number was the key in the lock, and the lock clicked, and the law turned on like a light. I watched the graph ease over the line while my tea was steeping on the desk. The kettle clicked, and the city changed, and it felt both ordinary and enormous. I signed the trigger ledger after the alert flashed on my screen. The ledger is a heavy book with a smooth spine and fresh pages that smell like new rain. When I sign, I am not making a law, but recording that the price met the rule. The rule is the promise we make to act on a price after a quiet test of time. In my city, we do not say that a thing is true or false without a measure. We say that a thing is likely or unlikely, and we live by those shades. Every choice wears a number like a badge, and we learn to read the badges with care. You might be curious how far this habit reaches, and I will show you gently. Weather is a price, and so is traffic, and even the chance your bus arrives on time. When the bus price falls, my phone nudges me toward the tram with a soft tone. A stew of sensors, diaries, and small bets feeds those nudges. The city pays a bonus to the people who make good predictions in public. Good means calibrated, which is our polite way to say honest about uncertainty. Children learn to speak in ranges and not in declarations. They practice with games at school, where truth comes in gradients. Saying I am sure is seen as rude, unless you show your interval. We keep a calendar for ourselves and a map for our confidence. In my role, I witness the crossings that flip a rule from sleep to wake. We call it crossing the threshold, and we treat it like a sunrise that we expected. Some rules enter our lives, like a tide that has kept time for years. Others arrive with a shock and a new shape that takes a while to fit. The curfew is one of those that people feel in their bones at once. There are gentle curfews and sharp curfews, and tonight it was gentle. Shops closed early, and the streets thinned, and the lights softened. My neighbor waved from her step and raised her cup toward my window. We smiled because the city had decided, and there would be fewer quarrels about it. The quarrels are not gone, of course, and I will not pretend they vanish. A number can carry fairness and still feel cold at the edges. I have lived long enough inside numbers to know they do not feed the soul on their own. So let me fold back a corner of my life so you can see the warmer parts. I have a partner, and his name is Theo, and he works the late shift at the bakery. Our dating app showed us a line called the compatibility curve. The curve was a tidy hill that rose after our third week of messages. It told us we were 68% likely to stay together for 5 years. We laughed about it on our second winter walk and kicked at thin ice by the river. The number felt like a lantern in fog, and also like a dare. We promised to check the curve only on Sundays, and then we broke that promise often. Some nights the curve rose to 70, and we would dance in the kitchen with bare feet on cool tile. Some mornings it dipped to 59, and we sat in silence with soft eyes and warm mugs. A new model joined the app this month, and it watched our message rhythm. It noticed my long pauses when I am tired from the ledger shifts. It decided that my pauses were a sign that I would hold back in conflict. The curve slid down to 57, and Theo made a face like a cloud passing across the sun. He said that love should not answer to a price that moves while he sleeps. I said that numbers help us watch ourselves without shame. He asked if I would ever say yes without waiting for the curve. I told him that I could say yes to dinner, and yes to a walk, and yes to repair. He asked about yes to a future, and I had no quick answer that felt clean. The city is proud that we admit uncertainty, yet we still crave vows. My mother laughs at our culture of rangers with a kind voice and a steady gaze. She keeps her vows in a small tin box and says that promises are not prices. She says the heart is not a market, and I know what she means. I carry her words with me when I sign and when I speak in cautious lines. I am careful not to make a number into a god. I am also careful not to make a feeling into a throne. Somewhere between those two, there is a quiet table where I try to sit. At that table, I ask what a price is really telling me. A good price in our world is a distillation of many minds into one cup. It is not a judge, and not a prophet, and not a command. It is a signal that says pay attention here in this way. Our laws attach to that signal with rules set long before any single case. The curfew rule says that if the price stays high enough for long enough, we enact it. It also says that if the price drops below a lower line for the same period, it dissolves. You can imagine how people plan their nights with those lines in mind. The bars offer earlier music, and the bakers shift their ovens, and the buses add twilight runs. 1,000 little choices make those changes feel gentle rather than brutal. The gentle feeling is not universal, and I know that too. Tio's hours shrink when curfews return, and we feel that pinch in our fridge. He worries that a graph rides roughshod over his craft. He asks why a city would not ask its people with a show of hands. I tell him that hands can lie, and crowds can shout, and shy voices go quiet. He tells me that prices can lie when the same model teaches everyone to think the same way. He is right, and I have seen it up close. A month ago, a dataset leaked, and fear moved like a dry wind. An outfit we call Oracle 13 weighed those stories too heavily and spooked half the city. The price rose not only because of danger, but because fear itself became fuel. We added friction to the rule to require a longer window for that market. We lengthened the wait, and the city cooled, and the price eased, and the law never flipped. We learned again that wisdom needs patience as much as it needs data. In court, our system is stranger and calmer than you might expect. The judge carries no gavel, and the room stays very quiet. We open 2 conditional markets on the same case with careful wording. One asks about harm if the event happened, and the other if it did not. We compare the prices when evidence comes in, under strict rules. The purpose is not to sell justice, but to check the weight of each proof. It is not perfect, yet it keeps us from worshipping any single witness. The hardest cases are not the ones with lies, but the ones with gaps. A gap can swallow a life if we are not humble about it. When a gap yawns, we step back and decline to guess, and we seek more light. We pay for more light, with a budget set by markets that predict the value of each test. Even that can feel cold, and I will not pretend it never stings. Some nights I go home with a clean ledger and a heavy heart. I remind myself that my job is not to make meaning, but to guard fairness. Meaning is what we make at our tables with bread and tea and quiet talk. Let me tell you about the night the markets went dark in truth and not in metaphor. A rare storm walked over the coast and took down lines we thought were steady. The city grid blinked, and the feeds stalled, and the prices froze like birds in a snapshot. At first, we stood still because we are used to waiting for the next tick of the graph. Then, we looked at one another in the soft dusk and decided to move. My neighbor lit a candle and called down the stair that she had extra blankets. I took the old field phone from the drawer and wound its crank with both hands. We made lists on paper of the flats with elders and the flats with new babies. We walked and knocked, and we carried kettles like small sons from door to door. No price told us how to do any of it, and we did it anyway, and it worked. When the grid woke up the next day, the city sighed in relief, and also in thought. We realized that our numbers had become a habit, and not a helper. A helper is welcome when you can always choose to act without it. A habit is dangerous when you forget you can act without it. That week, I drafted a new clause and pushed it up the chain with a clear note. I called it the mercy veto, and I asked for it to sit beside every rule that binds to a price. The mercy veto allows a small human council to suspend any price for 2 nights. They must write why in plain words and sign with their own names. The purpose is not to cancel math, but to keep dignity on the table. The council used that veto once last winter when a shelter market lagged the wind by a day. They opened the doors early, and people lived who might have been left in the cold. The model owners were angry for a week, and then they tuned their feed and made it faster. The veto did not weaken the system, and I think it made us bolder in the right way. Tio said the veto sounds like a vow hidden in a rule, and he smiled again for the first time in days. We cooked sweet rolls that night and brushed sugar from each other's wrists. The curve on our phone did not know about the sugar or the laughter. That is fine, because the curve is a tool, and our kitchen is a life. I do still check the curve on Sundays, because old habits are friendly if you keep them gentle. When the curve rises, I take it as a reminder to stay kind and to ask good questions. When the curve dips, I ask myself what I can do better without self-blame. Gifts should not be held hostage by a graph, and I try to remember that. In the bakery, Tio tracks a price that predicts morning queues. He shapes his batch to match the queue, and he hates and loves that prediction in equal measure. He says the dough teaches him patience, while the graph teaches him timing. On good days, he sees them as partners, and on bad days, as rivals for his attention. I suppose that is the theme of my life with numbers. They are partners when I let them be, and rivals when I hide behind them. I have learned to speak my own reason first, and then check the number. If my reason matches the number, I walk forward with both. If my reason fights the number, I pause and look for the missing piece. Often, the missing piece is emotion that I did not want to name. I have found that naming a fear makes a number more honest rather than less. I also think that a number can offer courage because it makes the unknown visible. A visible unknown is less frightening than a shadow with no shape. My mother says that courage is a light you carry and not a light you rent. I enjoy this argument with her because we both get to be right in different ways. She keeps her tin box with vows, and I keep my ledger with lines, and we meet for tea on Sundays. We do not try to win, and that helps. You asked me once how it feels to live where probabilities are law. It feels like walking on stones set across a river instead of a wooden bridge. The stones are stable if you place your feet with attention. The water is always moving, and you know it, and that makes you kinder to yourself when you slip. Some days I envy your bridge, if you still have one. Some days I believe the stones have made my legs strong. I am writing this tonight because the sirens have quieted and the city is settling into soft curfew hours. I can hear the hum of the tram in low gear on the late loop. Tio has sent me a message that the last tray is out and cooling on the rack. He says the buns came out round as moons, and I am smiling as I type that. I am thinking about our curve, and I am thinking about vows. I know I cannot price the taste of warm sugar on a winter night. I know I can still make a plan to be kind when I am hungry and tired. Perhaps that is the real use of a number for a life. It gives you a plan for the worst moments and leaves the best moments free to surprise you. I will tell you something else before I close, because it sits like a small weight in my pocket. I have been asked to move to the central office, where the rules are designed. The offer comes with a stipend and a seat at the table where thresholds are set. It also comes with a rule that I must not sign the trigger ledger for 6 months. I am afraid to leave the book I know and the people I serve. I am also afraid not to try, because someone would set those lines with less care. My mother says to choose and hold the choice with love. Tio says to visit the office for 1 week and then decide. The price for my success there is high on the job market, and I am trying not to stare at it. I think I will go for the week and write back to you from the long white table. If I do not write, I will be in the bakery, tasting new rolls and forgetting about graphs for a day. Either way, I will be honest with myself and with you. Before I end, I want to leave you with a simple practice we use when conversations get tense. We ask what odds would move you and what evidence would move me. Then we look for the smallest test we can run that is kind and safe. It sounds dry when I write it, but it has saved many friendships. I offer it to you as a gift without strings. If your world ever borrows our markets, please borrow our veto as well. Keep a small council with warm eyes and plain words and short meetings. Give them the power to pause any price for 2 nights with a signed note. You may never use it, and that will be a quiet triumph of design. If you do use it, you will be grateful that it was there like a spare key under the pot. I am looking at the clock, and I can see the gentle end of the curfew window approaching. The tram will shift back to full speed, and a soft cheer will drift up from the sound of wheels. Tio will lock the shop and wrap the tray in a clean cloth and walk home with his shoulders loose. I will boil water, and we will split the first bun and eat in silence, and then talk. We will talk about the offer, and the mercy veto, and the Sunday curve, and my pauses. We will not try to win. We will try to understand and to choose a small next step. That is all I can ask of a life that is lived near a graph. I hope it is enough in your world as well. From your friend who lives in the world next to yours, I send this letter across the thin distance. Thank you for listening to my letter all the way to the end. If this voice kept you company, please tap like so the message finds more friends. Please subscribe to the channel so you can visit again when a new letter arrives. Leave a comment with the moments that stayed with you, because I always read them. If you wish to support this project, please use the QR code on the screen or the link in the video description. You will also find links in the description to very different series that live on this channel. Wander there when you want a fresh path without leaving your chair. For now, I will say goodnight and thank you for your time. I hope to see you in the next story from the world next to mine.